Thanks very much, Count Corla. Minister, this question is in relation to a national air cargo aircraft, flight number N176CA, that arrived in Shannon from Norfolk US Naval Base on the 20th of April, headed for Kuwait International Airport and then landed at Incirlik Air Base in southeast Turkey before coming back to Shannon. I'm wondering, as it operated on a US military call sign, whether it had sought permission for any guns or ammunition to be granted an exemption on either of those dates that it was at Shannon.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
The air navigation, carriage of munitions of war, weapons and dangerous goods order, statutory instrument 224/1973, as amended, provides that no munitions or weapons of war may be carried by an aircraft in Irish airspace without an exemption granted under the order. I can confirm that in accordance with Article 5 of the Air Navigation, Carriage of Munitions of War, Weapons and Dangerous Goods Order 1973, a munition of war permit was issued on the 13th of April 2017 for each of the national airline flights that landed in Shannon on the 20th and 21st of April 2017.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy.
Minister, the reason why this question is down, that is, in February of this year, Shannon Watch lodged a Freedom of Information request for correspondence and records relating to a sample of 12 US military contracted flights that landed in Shannon or flew through Irish airspace in October 2016, which were classified as civilian rather than military, even though they had military call signs and were operated by airlines that have an indefinite delivery or indefinite quantity contracts to provide those services to the US military. Now, the problem is that your department responded by saying that in relation to flights by Sun Country Alliance, UPS Airlines and National Air Cargo, the department has no record of any information in relation to these flights. And the problem is that, say, for example, in the Sun Country flights, which were listed in the FOI request, they were all going to the NATO airbase in Turkey on the border with Syria, the primary location using for US military airstrikes against Syria and Iraq. And the idea that they would be travelling through Irish airspace not involved in military activity is just beyond belief. So really, if you like, the answer they got was that either the US weren't giving you the information or you weren't giving the people who asked the information about these flights, because the records would say that many of these flights haven't sought exemptions.
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
In the specific cases, which I'm not familiar with, I'll ask my department to clarify to the Deputy what the situation was in those particular ones. When you refer to the Turkish and Syrian situation, I think that's a matter for Foreign Affairs. It's not a matter for me. I have and will make decisions on the grounds of safety, and have indeed required made certain demands and refused permission to several aircraft on the grounds of safety, but I'm not entitled to do it on the grounds of policy, and that is a matter which you should refer to Foreign Affairs. But I should say this to the Deputy. Recently, because of the obvious the obvious need in this area, I decided recently that my department should carry out an internal review of the statutory instrument to which I referred in my earlier reply, and that's Air Navigation, Carriage of Munitions, War, Weapons and Dangerous Goods Order 1973 as amended. Because of the age of the 1973 order and changes to international law since 1973, in particular in relation to dangerous goods,
can we bring it in your next response, if you don't mind?
I'm of the view, that it would be timely to carry out a full review of statutory instrument number 224, 1973, Air Navigation, Carriage of Munitions of War, Weapons and Dangerous Goods Order 1973.
Well, I think a review is long overdue. Minister, and badly needed, because the indication would be that the Department doesn't even have reliable information based on those FOI requests. And I would remind you that the Hague Convention on Neutrality specifically forbids the transportation of munitions of war, and it doesn't say that they have to be on military aircraft. They are prevented also on civilian aircraft, and you have to sign off on these before they're given an exemption. And I would remind you that when Deputy Wallace moved his bill in 2015, you said that this was an area that you had deep concern about, that you deeply regretted our participation in, if you like, bending the knee to foreign authorities like the US. And I think, you know, that should be followed through now, because on a strict time frame on this review, because daily flights through Shannon more than once a day with different code tags, military tags on civilian aircraft. They're not travelling for nothing. There's a reason why they're doing it. They're in heavily invested war zones, and we're facilitating that situation.
Deputy Wallace.
Thank you. Look, Minister, whatever is written on these civilian airlines aircrafts, your department is responsible for the civilian aircraft. And Minister, do you not think, I mean, I want to ask you yourself, do you not think that it's long past time that we stopped allowing Shannon to be used as a US military base in order to wreak havoc in areas of the Middle East and beyond, using our airport? And Minister, given that we understand it's not all under your remit, the Department of Justice and Defence are involved as well, but you are responsible for civilian aircraft, and there are civilian aircraft carrying munitions and guns, bullets, through Shannon on the way to cause destruction in other regions, kill people day and night. Minister, do you think that we should still facilitate this?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
I'd like to thank the Deputy for straying into the area of foreign affairs, which is something I did not intend to get into this afternoon. My duty, my job and my function in this particular area is purely on the grounds of safety, and it's to do with civilian aircraft. And that's where the question is. But having said that, and because of the need to define the various functions more clearly between Foreign Affairs, Justice and myself, I have launched a full root and branch review of the SI, and that's what I propose to do. Because so many aspects of the current SI require review, it is likely that implementing the recommendations would require a new SI to replace SI 224, rather than piecemeal amendments to the existing SI to bring it into line with EU legislation. And that's where I'm going to leave that at the moment.
Thank you very much, Minister.